Well, welcome back. So nice of you to join me yet again for yet another video. Now, if you've been following the channel, and if you have, believe me, I am very, very, very grateful. You will have noticed that I've done quite a series of installation of operating systems, uh, all revolving around the Sawtooth, the PowerMac G4 AGP graphics. Uh, what I've done with that machine is to install every operating system that a PowerPC Mac can run, with the unfortunate exception of OS 8.6. I was unable to install OS 8. I tried using a retail disk that I had purchased off eBay. I tried using a disk that I had burned. I was just unable to get it to install. However, I do have all of the operating systems from OS 9.2.2 up to OS 10, 10.5.8 Leopard, and everything in between. Not the point releases, of course, but the final versions of all of those operating systems. So, I thought it would be of some interest, to me at least, and maybe to some other people out there, to take a bit of a tour of all of these operating systems. Now, I do intend to go through each one step by step. However, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the time. I know my videos get to be very long. I will try to keep an eye on the time. And if it really seems to be getting very much too long, I may break it. That I'm kind of planning on it. Maybe doing OS 9 through 10.1. So 3 operating systems. And then 10.2 through 10.5. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, I hope you find this interesting. And stay tuned. We'll be right to it. Well, we're going to begin our tour of the PowerPC operating systems here with OS 9.2.2. Look at about this computer. 9.2.2 was the last version of the classic Mac OS. It had been introduced, OS 9, in the year 2000, about a year before OS 10 was first released. It progressed, obviously, through point releases. OS 9.1 and its successors were the first ones that could be used in the classic environment on Mac OS 10. 9.2 and 9.2.1 and then 9.2.2 were the final revisions to get it to run in that environment. The Sawtooth, of course, is very capable of booting into OS 9, so here we are. I did a video with a tour of OS 9. This desktop will look just a little bit different. Obviously, all of these icons, this machine being an operating system workshop, there are actually 7. Let's see, they didn't all load this time. No, I see they're up there. There are 7 different operating systems into which this machine can boot, as well as a data partition, which is shared by all of the operating systems. Rather than the continued line of application aliases down here, I have created a pseudo dock. You can put the aliases anywhere on the desktop you want. There actually are applications. I believe you can still download them from Mac OS 9 Lives or Macintosh Repository, Macintosh Garden. uh, applications which would set up a sort of a dock. But here I've just done it by dragging the aliases around to they're in the place that I wanted, and added some functionality that we're very used to in OS 10. For instance, a calendar. Now I'm curious as what's going to happen with this U calendar. The demo mode expires 2024, so I've got a little less than a month. Is it actually going to expire? I can't imagine you can still buy this, but it's quite a functional little calendar. I put in a repeating event, the weekly choir rehearsal that we used to have back when we could actually go places. There are other things we can do. If we go back a month into February, you can see that you're able to put U.S. holidays in, and the program just adds all of those. And we go along here, Easter Sunday coming up in a couple of weeks, and yeah, we're all going to be inside in our homes. Good Friday, I added in Maundy Thursday, since that would have been a choir service if we actually were having choir. So a functional little calendar. I don't know what's going to happen in a month, whether it expires and I have to reinstall it and keep going that month by month. Okay, now another thing we're used to from macOS is the convenience of notes. This is not Notes, certainly. It isn't interoperable, but there is a little small application called Notepad in macOS 9, and you can have quite a variety of notes. Here's my first note. Oops, sorry. There's the second note. There's the third note. Now, shopping list. I use that in Notes all the time, but that's because I can compile the shopping list on either a Mac or my iPad, and then when I actually go shopping, back in the days when we went shopping, I could just refer to my phone to have the shopping list there, no paper needed. That obviously is not going to work here, since you wouldn't be bringing an OS 9 laptop along with you, I don't think. But it can be a handy way to keep notes and keep them easily accessible. ClassZilla we've certainly seen, and as the application suite. Here we go. That's the homepage for the ClassZilla project. We have our mail and news groups. This can take a while to open up. I believe it just got an email. I'll have to check out what that is later. There are a couple of other things available from here. One, an address book. The Contacts app doesn't exist, but you can certainly get that here. I've got my two different entries here, one for me and one for John Jones, an actual real person. He was my grandfather, and he was known around Atmore, Alabama as Mr. Johnny. So you do have, it's a very functional address book, actually. You can certainly make very good use of it. The one other component that you have here, take a second to open up, there is actually an HTML editor, and it's not too bad a one, actually. I wouldn't do web pages of any great import. It's not going to be really fancy, but it is a way of creating a quick website if you really needed to. All right. iTunes. There is an iTunes for OS 9. Come on, open up. There we go. All right. And when I installed it, it imported all sorts of different sounds. But you can add to it. And one thing that I did add here was yep, that's me playing the banjo, also me playing the bass. Okay, I don't think we need to continue any further with that. I don't think you're going to buy CDs or you're going to buy tunes over the iTunes store or anything like that. But if you have CDs or MP3 files, this was originally recorded as an M4A file. I had to convert it to an MP3 in order for this to work. We also have iMovie. It opens up full screen. And you can set a new project, open a project, tutorial. Oh, be quiet. Let's turn that down because it's going to play again. Bring your clips into here. It looks very much like iMovie HD, although it's an earlier version. All right. We're not going to edit a movie here in the middle of this film. Okay. Put a link in here to the games. Then I've done videos with that. Oregon Trail, Myst, 8-Ball Deluxe. If anybody has any favorite OS 9 games they'd like me to download and put on here, I would be more than happy to. All right, AppleWorks 6. Quite functional little Office suite, word processing, spreadsheet, database, drawing, painting, presentation. It's a little awkward to work with, but yeah, you can save files in Word format, which is handy because otherwise you might not be able to open them at all. But in order to edit any of those files, it has to go through an importation process of a file which it itself created. Maybe a little bit more interoperable in today's world. The Office 2001 suite is here and available for us. Okay, and this, of course, is Word. That's the most commonly used one. But we've got Excel here, PowerPoint, Entourage, the old mail application. Print Shop, we've seen Print Shop in the past. Stuffed Expander, before the days of zip files, we created Stuff It, SLT archives. Toast Titanium is a very handy little app, particularly in this day. It will mount disk images as though they were CDs or DVDs, which is a handy thing. Sherlock 2, the search, pretty much useless in today's day and age. All right, so that's a pretty quick look at OS 9. Let's go to Startup, Disk here in Control Panels. And we're going to go in order. Let's go to 10.0. Yes, Happy Mac does appear in 10.0. The gray apple had yet to make its appearance, at least in the boot up screen. All right. And you'll notice this is taking some time. That was one of the big complaints from back in the day, that OS X in its first versions would boot up so slowly. As I go back and forth, this really doesn't seem that bad. All right. What have we got here? About this Mac. 10.0.4. That was the last version of the OS that was known as Cheetah. The first two versions of OS X had the big cat code names, but they were just code names. When they were released, that wasn't part of the branding at all. Today, of course, it is. Starting with Jaguar, OS 10.2 was when they started to use the big cat names as part of the branding of the OS. All right, now what have we got in the dock? Not much, because there really were very few applications. Apple's own mail application made its debut in 10.0. It is possible to use it, but it's flaky, and I certainly wouldn't recommend it. The problem you're going to have trying to use Cheetah is internet access. It's absolutely dreadful. It's not, though, the fault of the operating system. Back in 2001, when it was released, it was quite functional. The email app worked very, very well. In fact, it's one of the things that was quite praised about the release. Internet Explorer, and we all have, I think, less than fond memories of Internet Explorer. But again, back in the day, it was at worst a very functional web browser that would go to most sites. Today, we can open it up and have a look. No, I don't, because it wouldn't do me any good. 5.1. Security failure. The server reply is invalid. I don't even know where it was trying to go, tell you the truth. And it can go to Google. Anything, any kind of browser at all can get to Google. So if you're going to use this operating system at all, and you need to get in the internet, your only option is ClassZilla. We don't really need to open it. It's the same ClassZilla that we had, in OS 9. But there is no current browser or email solution. So the only way is to go into classic mode and start up ClassZilla. The search was still Sherlock, and well, we can at least open it and look at it. You can search the various drives, as it can't index some of those. Probably, I don't know why it can't index itself. Okay, it's currently indexing my home folder. Searching the internet. And Sherlock quit. So, just as well, I'll cut this short. It really won't do anything today. All right, you can see system preferences in a bit. Displays, why did they put that in the dock? I think they were just looking for things to populate the dock. I can't imagine anything else. QuickTime Player, again, there's not much reason really to have QuickTime Player in the dock, or maybe people just used QuickTime differently back then. All right, now this is interesting. AppleWorks. It's the same AppleWorks that we looked at in OS 9. Note, I have not started Classic. And note the blue aqua interface Apple. AppleWorks was carbonized with the Carbon API, application programming interface. It was Apple's fast and dirty method of getting OS 9 applications ported to run under OS 10. This is actually the only carbonized app that I have found, and it does certainly work. And you don't have to go into Classic. Anything else? We can look at Word in a second. Late breaking news, oh goody. I put that link to the Documents folder in there. Looking at things, what could I possibly put in the dock? All right, now, Word. Note, the Classic environment is starting. This is Word 2001. It was an OS 9 only application. So this is going to take forever, but it's usually better to let Classic start. If it ever starts. It's going to start. Okay, that's a warning from OS 9. All right, can I quit it? Yeah, let's quit it. We can't quit it. Well, no, it's just going to open up. What the heck? I didn't really want to take the time. You all know what Word looks like. Maybe we can force quit. Oh, we can't force quit it. There we go. Oh, it's the Classic environment. Okay, that's what's not responding. All right, it usually does respond. Okay, so I'm going to open System Preferences. Go to Classic, which here is the first thing on the list because it was so vital. All right. That's the first time that's happened. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it though. We get other times to get into those things. All right. Startup disk. And we're going to go to our next operating system, 10.1, which had the code name Puma. Now, this is interesting. If you've ever done anything with startup disks, if you've worked with a multi-boot system on OS 10, you would be looking here for the restart button, having made your selection. It doesn't exist. We'll close out of System Preferences, and then we just have to restart it from the Apple menu as we usually would. Once again, Puma 10.1, still in the boot screen, had Happy Mac. We had yet to see the gray apple at this stage of the boot process. Now here we get an Aqua Apple, initializing the network, which it does every time, and it takes a fair amount of time. Okay, we got through that time, and then from that point it's fairly expeditious. It's not an impossible time, but people were used to OS 9 booting up very, very quickly. Of course, everything being on SSD. All right. So about this Mac on this one. 10.1.5. Yeah, I'm not looking at System Profiler because, of course, it's the same system for all these operating systems. All right. Now here, again, I put ClassZilla. ClassZilla, again, for Puma, is the only answer to actually get anywhere on the internet, and it is limited. But it offers the same functionality. It's a pretty good little email client, and the address book is fine. It'll get to some web pages, but it does have to run under Classic. All right. Now there is, of course, the macOS address book, which made its appearance here. And again, I put the two sample entries in there. The card for yourself is usually put in there when you set up your user account, and the one for my grandfather. All right. iTunes. iTunes 2, as opposed to iTunes 1, which we saw back in OS 9. There was no iTunes that would run on 10.0 other than iTunes version 1, and it would have to run under Classic. So yeah, people weren't awfully happy at having paid $129 for an operating system that really couldn't do much of anything. This is a little bit better. That same tune that I copied and converted to an MP3. Competing with the motorcycles on the highway ramp out behind. Okay. So it is a functional iTunes, at least as far as being able to import songs that you already have. iMovie. Very much the same as what you saw under OS 9, but it is a functional OS 10 application. It's really not any different. It's just been ported over to run on the OS 10 architecture. What's the same with Sherlock? QuickTime players in there. The Print Shop. For the first time, we get a version of the Print Shop that will run on OS 10. Again, back on 10.0, if you wanted to use Print Shop, you had to we'll cancel it. You had to open it up under Classic from OS 9. All right, and this, let's get About Word here. Microsoft Word 10. All this was really was a version of the Office Suite, and of course, as you can see, all the Office Suite components are installed. It was a version of Office 2001. It's not really any different but it runs natively on OS 10. I tried to install it on 10.0. It would not install. It requires 10.1 at a minimum. All right. So we can quit Word. So yeah, you can run things under Classic to be sure, but you are at least a little bit better enabled to function under OS 10 without constantly having to reboot into OS 9. However, most people at that point, Mac users, would boot into OS 9 routinely and really didn't see a whole lot of reason to boot into OS 10. And you can see why. Sure, you've got Mac versions of apps here that run on OS 10 that don't do anything differently than what you could do perfectly well on OS 9. When they released this, 6 months after the first release of OS 10, this came out and I think they sold it for like $29, much, much less. But anyone who had bought OS 10.0 could go into their retailer and get a free copy of OS 10.1. It was the upgrade CD, which I was trying to use at one point. All right, so that's I think, going to be the end of part one. This has been long enough. We have covered the first 3 operating systems that I have to cover. OS 9, OS 10.0, OS 10.1. We'll pick it up next installment with Jaguar, Panther, Tiger, and Leopard, where we reach the end of this actually surprisingly short but wonderful PowerPC OS 10 era. Well, I certainly hope that you've enjoyed this look at the operating system so far. Do come in with me for part 2 when we get there. As always, be good to other people, be good to yourselves, and especially take very good and careful care. These are very difficult times. See you soon.